So I want to talk today about the quality of guilt. And there's so many aspects to understanding guilt, what it is, what it feels like, what it means in our life. But I'm just going to take a couple different ways in which to explain this because I want this to really sink in for you today. So let's just take this aspect of guilt right now. So guilt comes upon us for so many reasons, and people put guilt upon others for so many reasons. But at the core of it, guilt will be put upon us to control us in some way. And so that can come from many different avenues of whether it is parents who put guilt on their children, or a teacher who puts guilt on a student, or a culture that puts guilt on a particular group of people. And it's part of the construct of how really our society has been formed. There's a lot of guilt going on for us. And if we're talking about guilt here, which we are, which I am, then we are also talking about the level in which we are able to enjoy life, the levels and the degrees in which we are able to allow ourselves to feel, to give ourselves permission to have pleasure in our life, to receive in our life. Because this has everything to do with the second chakra of our body, has to do with self-gratification. Do we allow ourselves to have? So when you look at the word guilt, it comes from, it has many definitions in the dictionary, but the origination of where it's rooted from has to do with a debt that we feel that we owe. So I'm speaking about guilt in these terms, but there's also other ways to define guilt. But this is what I want to focus on today. Okay, so because there's ways in which guilt can actually be a marker for us to check in with ourselves to see if it's something that we maybe should be doing. I don't mean like should from the ego perspective, but it's something that we know that we're responsible for. But that's what I'm not talking about here today. I'm talking about the ways in which guilt can rule us and dictate our lives and keep us from making choices that we desire, that we want, that we know that we really want to live in our life. So let's go back to what that is, what the root of the word guilt is. It has to do with the debt that we feel that we owe. And so in that way, if we feel that we owe a particular person, a particular culture, our religion, our children, our family, our relationships, on and on and on, our work environment, if we feel that we owe them something in some way, that we're indebted to them, then we are going to be guilt-ridden. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I've had some really powerful conversations with a few people over the last couple of days, and those conversations had to do with how guilt was running their life on a level that they had not realized before. And so the ability for them to take in more, to allow themselves and give themselves permission to do things that they desire, or that are keeping them in places that make them feel that they are in fear, or that they are in survival, they're in flight, fight, or freeze, and they can't seem to get over it, had everything to do with their relationship to guilt and how it was put upon them. And so the thing about guilt is that it's insidious, is that we will have it come up and not even realize that it is up for us. That's a reason why we're not making choices, because we feel guilty. We feel we don't have the right to. In some way, like, ask yourself that question. In what ways do I not feel that I have the right to make a choice, to say yes to something that we really want, to desire something that we just always have had in our mind that we really always wanted? I think one of the saddest things for us to have happen at the end of our lives, and maybe it happens for everybody, I don't know, I'm not at the end of my life that I know of in this moment, but is if we go back and we lament the things. Well, number one, we go back and lament, I'm sure, on some level. But if we feel regret for things that we did not choose. And there's times when we will self-sacrifice in ways that are sacred, and there's times when we will self-sacrifice ourselves when they are dysfunctional. And I think it's important for us to differentiate those two different ways of being, and knowing that if we are making these self-sacrifices from the place of making it sacred for another, then it's important for us to know that is being done on a very conscious level versus the unconscious level. The other reason why I want to bring up guilt is because right now what's happening for us collectively is that our value systems are on trial right now. And whether we want to look at that personally or not, it's really the truth. And our value systems of how we choose to live our life is what's being asked to be looked at more deeply. And so our values are very much tied to the destructive force of how guilt can be in our bodies. Like, we feel guilty if we do not stay loyal to a certain dynamic, to a certain mindset. We don't feel loyal if we don't stay loyal to the family psyche, to the family tradition. And that's what we're breaking apart right now. I've been talking about breaking through these paradigms of old ways of being, of the hierarchy, of the patriarch, of these constructs that we have built that are no longer going to serve us. Not just even service, because I think that's kind of like an old paradigm in itself, even to say that, that no longer serve you. No, these things will no longer take you. They will no longer take you to the next place that you are wanting to go. So, for a long time, we've been speaking that language about what serves you, what doesn't serve you. It's like, let's go beyond that, people. Let's say what no longer is going to take us to the next place. This flat out, if we stay in these old paradigms, will not take us to the next place. And so this evaluation of our value system is really important for us to do. What is important? How are we still being held to old paradigms of beliefs? And a lot of times that comes from different cultures of our religion and our family. We've got to go beyond these limited beliefs in order for us to move into this next era of life. This is evolutionary. This isn't just, I just want to transform. This is not just about us, right? Because I don't believe it is, period. This is evolutionary here. And we are struggling to move through this. And how we move through this is through our individual selves. So if we can look at this, not so much from the personal perspective, but from a much more collective perspective of like, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to stop doing? I'll put it that way. What do you need to stop doing? What are you seeing? We have the new moon coming up tomorrow in Aquarius. Aquarius energy is about being able to see things from a much more communal place of living. It's not just about the I, it's about the we. It's getting new ideas. It's about breaking the status quo. That's what Aquarian energy is. It's like, I'm doing it my way. I am an innovator. I am a pioneer. I'm going to let my freak flag fly, and I don't care what anybody else thinks, and I'm an individual. I'm no longer going to be held by the limiting perspective of the status quo. So, if you were to do that, if you were to move forward in what feels right for you and letting go of the status quo that has been constructed inside of you, what would that look like? And a lot of times guilt comes up, and that's why I'm having this conversation, is because guilt will come up. And that's what we're going to have to brave. That's what will be part of the battle. That's part of the enemy within. What is your relationship to guilt? Do you feel bad? I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't say that. I feel bad. This isn't about hurting people's feelings intentionally, but feelings will get hurt. So are you going to self-sacrifice your own feelings for somebody else's when it's not feeling healthy for you? And what reality? Here's a question. So do you sometimes question your reality? Because I think that's something that's really important for us to do, is to question our reality. The reality of the life that we're living right now, in this moment, at this second. Food for thought. Give me your thoughts. Love to hear them. I hope this was of help to you. Namaste.